So this one's a commission. I had a returning customer on Etsy, an absolute legend, come back and ask for this double page One Piece spread. Ace and Luffy. One side is them as kids, the sake cups, all that, and the other side is, well, you can see the other side. And it's a fun one to film because two halves basically need opposite inking approaches. The left side is quiet texture, trees, grass, hatching. The right side is mostly just solid black. So I figured I'd walk you through both, because if you ink your own stuff, the useful bits are all in how differently you have to treat them. If you're new here, I'm Tim. I redraw manga art and mess around with different mediums. Today it's back to basics, just ink. Quick bit of context, this came through my Etsy shop, and like I said before, it's a repeat customer, which honestly is the best feeling. Someone liked the first piece enough to come back. They wanted the Ace and Luffy childhood panels, the sake cup exchange, and then the Marineford moment. Which, if you know, you know. And I get why they picked this pairing. It's basically the whole relationship on one spread. Kids messing around with sticks in the forest, sharing sake cups, and then that. Oda's very good at planting stuff hundreds of chapters early. Now today you won't see the penciling, I never filmed that part. I just quietly got it done in my spare time after work. It's just me erasing pretty much the same arm over and over again. But the quick version, I start with a 2H and then I use a HB mechanical pencil just to work over the top of it. So I try to keep the pencil work not too sketchy either, so I know exactly where my inking lines are, just to make it more simple for me later. Tools for the inking. My deleted G pen with proper manga ink, and I used a brush pen for this one. One of the pre-filled ones that you have to bend in half to get the ink to fall through. And just a grey tone alcohol marker. I have a whole set from Ohuhu, so I just use a CG 01, 02 or a WG. That's it really, nothing fancy. So I started with the Ace panel first. The biggest, heaviest, scariest part of the whole commission. My thinking was that this is the panel that makes or breaks the piece. So if something's going to go wrong, I want to find out in hour 1, not hour 8, after everything else is already done. Plus this side takes real commitment. Also, if I sound a bit run down, I'm sick at the moment, so bear with me. Quick note on how I worked with this one, because it's a bit different than how a lot of inkers would work. I don't do passes across the whole piece, line work everywhere, then detail everywhere. I finish each panel completely before I move on to the next one. And the reason I did this is so I can get an idea of the whole layout of the piece, and if I had made any mistakes I could just restart. Partly it's just how my brain worked for this one, but it also means at any point in the process part of the piece looks properly finished, which on a commission is very good for my stress levels. This side is maybe 60% solid black, and the whole game is deciding where the black goes. Mangaka call it spotting blacks, and it's honestly the single most important skill in inking a page like this. The way I was thinking about it, the black shapes should connect. Look at the flow. Smoke starts up at the top, runs down through Ace's hair, and runs out through the big sound effect. It's meant to be read as a continuous shape your eyes travel along. If the blacks were just scattered across wherever things happen to be dark, the page would feel kind of static. I outlined each shape with a G pen, then fill in with a brush pen. Do not ink large areas with a dip pen. What you can do is get a small brush and then dip it into the manga ink, but I just felt like getting more control with a brush pen. Crisp edge from the G pen and then fast and loose inside it. I work away from my hand because I've absolutely dragged my wrist through wet ink before, and it's a special kind of pain. And it's a special kind of pain on a commission. And I leave little white gaps inside the smoke, tiny sort of breathing holes. Solid black reads flat. Black with little pockets of white reads like movement. The fire and smoke thing is worth mentioning too. Flames I draw are these tapering S-curves, always narrow and get pointy at the tip. Smoke is soft, and putting those two shape languages right next to each other is what makes the explosion, what makes the scene feel alive instead of like a black cloud. And because I finished each panel fully, All the fine details happen now, not later. This is where the mindset flips completely. Ace's back here is nearly all in shadow, but you can still read the muscles, and that's because I'm not drawing the shadow, it's drawing the light. I ink around the forms and leave thin slivers of white paper to define them. It took me ages to get comfortable with this when I started, because your brain wants you to draw the thing, not the gaps around the thing, but in heavy shadow, the gaps are the drawing. Akainu in the back gets less detail on purpose. Lighter lines, less contrast, so he sits behind everything. Depth in black and white is really just a contrast dial. Turn it down, things go black. Turn it up, things come forward. Right, so I started with the hardest panel first, and it survived and is fully finished. Now everything flips. Where the death panel was all commitment and big black shapes, these panels are restraint, texture, and after all that brush pen, going back to the G pen honestly feels like a holiday. Same approach, each panel gets completely finished before I move on to the next one, and this whole side is the G pen. The thing I love about a G pen is how the line changes with pressure. You can get these nice thick outlines, and then you can get barely there lines in the background without ever having to switch pens. The main thing going here is the line weight. Ace and Luffy get the thickest outlines, the details on top of them get thinner, and the background gets the thinnest. That's what makes them pop off the panel, even without a whole forest behind them. On these two middle panels, the Saki exchange, look at the trees behind them. No outline, no trunks at all, just vertical strokes, straight texture. When the panel is about emotion, I want the background sitting way back, just kind of humming, not competing with their faces. Last step, and a newish bit for me on this piece, the grey tone alcohol marker. This is the one thing I do save for the very end, once every panel is inked and properly dried. It goes over the whole spread, mainly in the right panel over Luffy, and then in some areas on the left. Just with defining Luffy's shirt color or Ace's shirt color against the background. The one warning, alcohol marker over ink that isn't properly dry, is how you smear an entire day of line work in one stroke. And that's the piece. Two completely opposite halves, one that's all restraint and texture, one that's all commitment and black. And the contrast between them is kind of the point. That's the Ace and Luffy story on the page, really. All up, this took me around 12 hours of inking. If you take anything away from this one, for your own inking, line weight does most of the heavy lifting. Different materials want different strokes. Protect your whites, and when you're spotting blacks, make the shapes connect so the eye has somewhere to go. So this one's off to a new home, and commissions like this are open on my Etsy right now. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, click like, subscribe. New videos every Sunday. I'm trying to be consistent. I'll see you in the next one.